I turned 48 the day it happened. Not that I was expecting balloons or confetti. I'm not that kind of guy. My name's Caleb, and I've never been big on birthdays, especially not my own. But I always showed up for everyone else's. Every handmade card, every last-minute gift scramble, every late-night grocery run for cake mix when my daughter remembered she needed cupcakes for class the next day. I was there. I thought being a good father, a good husband, meant showing up, staying calm, providing, putting others first, even when it chipped away at you little by little. Like a stone in the river, I let myself get worn down, thinking that's what love was supposed to feel like. Quiet sacrifice. I guess I should back up a bit. I've been married to Dana for 23 years. We met when we were in college. She was the loud one, the dreamer, the one who always lit up a room with a joke or some wild idea. I was the steady one, the planner, the guy who remembered to pay rent on time and carry a sweater because it might get cold later. We balanced each other out, I thought. Or maybe I just anchored her while she sailed wherever she pleased. We had 2 kids. Jake is 20 now, and Emily just turned 17. Jake was always a bit of a follower, eager to please, quick to pick up on his mom's moods. Emily, a firecracker, smart, biting with her sarcasm, quick to detect weakness and pounce, but brilliant, and I always admired her drive. I used to joke that Jake got Dana's charm and Emily got her claws. They both inherited her ability to twist a moment, to shape reality just enough to make you question your own memory of what happened. Dana called it wit. I called it something else, though I couldn't quite name it until years later. We lived in a 2-story colonial in a nice enough suburb. I commuted into the city, working as a project manager at a manufacturing firm. It was stable, unglamorous work. Dana started her own interior design business a decade ago, which meant she was mostly home, juggling mood boards and client meetings from the living room. The house always looked great, but I paid for it, literally and figuratively. Somewhere along the way, our family became more performative. Everything was a story, a spectacle, a joke to be shared at my expense. My quirks, my routines, my quietness, they became punchlines. Harmless teasing at first, then jabs that drew blood. I'd walk into a room and the laughter would stop for a beat, then pick up again with someone muttering, "Speak of the spreadsheet." Dana loved calling me Mr. Predictable. Jake joined in. Emily too. I told myself it was just family banter. They didn't mean anything by it, right? But the cracks were already showing. Take last Christmas, for instance. Dana posted a video of me trying to carve the turkey while everyone else wore matching sweaters she ordered without telling me. I wasn't in on the joke, apparently. Dad didn't get the memo, she laughed. The video got hundreds of likes and comments from her friends. Poor guy. Classic Caleb. He looks so confused, lol. I smiled in the moment. Laughed even. But later, alone in the garage, I scrolled through the comments with a lump in my throat and a strange hollowness in my chest. It wasn't about the sweater. It was about being the butt of the joke. Again. So when my birthday rolled around this year, I didn't expect a parade. But I hoped, foolishly, that maybe I'd get a quiet dinner. Maybe a card from Emily, something hand-drawn like she used to make. A hug from Jake, maybe. Something real. Instead, I got the card. We were all gathered in the dining room. Dana made her famous lemon cake. Jake brought his girlfriend, a girl named Lila who barely made eye contact with me. Emily was texting the whole time. I was smiling, making small talk, trying to stay grateful. Dana handed me a card with a big grin and said, "Open it, Caleb." We all helped write it. That should have been my first clue. I opened it. On the front, there was a cartoon of a guy drowning in paperwork. Inside, in bright red marker, it said, "Thanks for ruining everything. Happy birthday, Dad." Below that, someone had drawn a tombstone with the words, "R.I.P. Spontaneity." They all burst out laughing. Dana was already mid-laugh, leaning into Jake's shoulder. "We figured it was time to give you some feedback," she said between giggles. "Constructive criticism, birthday edition." Jake snorted. "Seriously though, Dad, you're like allergic to fun." Emily didn't even look up. "We should get him a planner for his birthday so he can schedule his midlife crisis." The room tilted slightly. I felt like I was underwater, watching it all from a distance. My smile froze. I heard myself chuckle, something brittle and automatic. I set the card down gently on the table, nodded, and reached for the cake. I even said thank you. Then I got up and did the dishes. No one offered to help. Later that night, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling while Dana scrolled through TikTok beside me. I turned to her and asked, "Did you think that card was funny?" She didn't look up. "Come on, Caleb. Don't be so sensitive." That was her answer for everything. I'd raise a concern, and it was me being sensitive. I'd bring up how I felt shut out, and suddenly I was overthinking. I'd express hurt, and I'd be told I was too quiet or too much in my head. But not once, did anyone stop to ask why I'd gotten so quiet, why I no longer laughed first, why I spent more time in the garage, or took long walks alone, or sat in my car for 20 minutes after getting home from work. Because they didn't want to know. Because if they knew, they'd have to admit what they were doing. That night, I waited until Dana fell asleep, the soft flicker of her phone screen lighting up her face. I got out of bed, padded downstairs, and opened my laptop. I searched for flights. One way, somewhere quiet, somewhere far, somewhere no one would think to look for me. And I booked it. 30 days out. Enough time to get my affairs in order. Enough time to see if anyone noticed the shift. Enough time to say goodbye without saying it. They didn't notice. In the days that followed, I started prepping, transferred some money, talked to my company about remote work for personal reasons, sold a few things on Craigslist, cleaned out my office. No one asked why. They just stepped over the boxes. I kept smiling, kept being dependable, predictable, the ghost of a man they thought they knew. And then, the day came, the last straw, and that's where things truly started to unravel. It started small, like most things that destroy you do. A misplaced comment here, a quiet jab there. The kind of things that don't seem like much on their own, but when they pile up, they start to suffocate you. 2 weeks after the "thanks for ruining everything" card, things at home began to feel different. Not louder, that would have been easier. Just emptier. The kind of silence that hums under everything, like static. Dana and I still spoke, of course, but mostly in logistics. Grocery lists, appointments, bills. Jake was barely home anymore, always out with friends or his girlfriend. Emily spent her nights in her room, music seeping through the walls, her door always closed. I was in the same house, but it no longer felt like mine. One night, I came home from work to find Dana sitting at the kitchen island with a glass of wine, laughing over her phone. When she saw me, she smiled, that sharp, polite smile she'd perfected. "Oh, you're home," she said, as if surprised I still showed up. "Yeah," I said, hanging my coat. "Long day." She murmured, scrolling. "You always have long days." I should have ignored it, but I didn't. That's kind of the nature of my job, Dana. Someone has to pay the bills. She looked up then, her eyes narrowing just slightly. "You always say that like I don't work too. I have clients, meetings, projects." I nodded. "I know. I just meant. I know what you meant." She cut me off, her voice suddenly cold. It wasn't a fight, not really, but it stuck to me like wet paint. Everything did, lately. The next day, I came home early. Dana's car was in the driveway. Inside, laughter drifted from the living room. Her and Emily. I smiled, relieved to hear something that sounded like connection. Maybe things were softening. I stepped in, ready to join them. That's when I heard my name. "Dad just doesn't get it," Emily was saying, her tone dripping with amusement. "He's like permanently stuck in dad mode." Dana laughed. "Oh, honey, he's been that way since college. The man thinks spontaneity is when you order a different sandwich." They both laughed. I froze by the doorway, half in shadow, watching them. Emily, legs curled up on the couch, her mother's features mirrored in her smirk. Dana, glass of white wine in hand, eyes gleaming. Then Emily said it, quiet, almost offhand, but I heard it like a gunshot. "No wonder you used to talk about leaving him." The room went quiet for half a heartbeat. Dana didn't laugh this time. She just smiled faintly and said, "That was years ago, Em. Don't repeat that." I stood there, still as a statue. My hands trembled, but not from anger. From clarity. She'd said used to. That was supposed to make it better, I guess. That night, I sat in the car outside a grocery store parking lot for an hour. Just breathing. Just thinking. I wanted to call someone, but who? My parents were gone. My brother and I hadn't spoken in years. My co-workers were polite, but we weren't close. My whole world was in that house, and that world had quietly decided I was the punchline. I remember staring at the reflection in my rearview mirror. I barely recognized myself. Gray hair at the temples, tired eyes, a face that used to smile easily but didn't anymore. When I got home, Dana was asleep on the couch. Emily had gone out. Jake was still out with his girlfriend. I sat down at the kitchen table and just stared at that same stupid birthday card still pinned to the fridge with a magnet. The red ink, the laughter frozen in time. I should have thrown it out weeks ago. But now, I didn't want to. It felt like proof. Evidence of what they'd become. Of what I'd allowed. The following weekend was Jake's birthday. His 21st. A big deal, apparently. Dana went all out. Decorations, a catered dinner, music, a slideshow of his baby photos projected on the living room wall. Everyone was invited. Everyone but me, it seemed. Technically, I was there. Physically. But I might as well have been invisible. Jake's friends clapped him on the back, laughing and pouring drinks. Dana flitted around, basking in the compliments about the setup. Emily recorded everything on her phone for Instagram. When I tried to talk to Jake, he was polite but distant. He barely made eye contact. "Hey, son," I said quietly, handing him a small box. "Happy birthday." He glanced at it. "Thanks, Dad," he said automatically, then looked past me. "Oh, Lila's here." He didn't open it. The box sat on the table for an hour before Dana finally picked it up and said, "Oh, Caleb, you didn't need to get him something old-fashioned." Inside was a silver watch I'd had engraved. Time well spent. I'd saved for it, wanting something meaningful, something he could wear for years. Dana smirked. "You know he uses a smartwatch now, right?" I nodded, but my throat tightened. "Yeah, I just thought, never mind." They laughed again. Jake put the watch aside. Emily rolled her eyes. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just unwanted, I was redundant. After the guests left, I cleaned up. The empty bottles. The plates. The confetti. Dana came into the kitchen, tipsy, humming a song I didn't recognize. "You could have at least smiled more," she said, rinsing her glass. I did. Barely. You make people uncomfortable when you get like that. Like what? So serious all the time. Just lighten up, Caleb. I stared at her. You humiliate me in front of our kids and their friends, and I'm supposed to smile through it? She froze, then laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "Oh, don't be dramatic. Nobody's humiliating you. God, you twist everything." I didn't respond. I couldn't. She shook her head and walked off, muttering something about me being impossible. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, eyes open, listening to the faint ticking of the hallway clock. Each second sounded heavier than the last. My one-way flight was in 2 weeks. I'd planned to slip away quietly, leave a note, maybe an email. But the idea of staying that long suddenly felt unbearable. Then came the breaking point. It was a Sunday, late morning. Jake and Emily were both home, lounging in the living room. Dana was at her laptop, probably working on a client presentation. I was in the kitchen making pancakes, trying to do something normal, something peaceful. When I called everyone for breakfast, they didn't come. I tried again. Finally, Dana appeared, looking irritated. "What's this about?" "Breakfast," I said. "I made pancakes." She sighed. "Caleb, no one asked you to." That one stung more than it should have. Jake wandered in, scrolling on his phone. "Hey, Dad, can you Venmo me $50? Lila and I are going out later." "Didn't I just give you some last week?" "Yeah, but that was different. This is for tonight." Dana chimed in before I could answer. "Just send it, Caleb. It's his birthday week." "It's been over a week," I said quietly. Her voice hardened. "You really have to make everything difficult, don't you?" Emily came in then, hair messy, wearing one of Dana's oversized sweatshirts. "Are we seriously doing pancakes again? You always make too many." I stared at the stack on the table. Golden, steaming, carefully made. I'd even put blueberries in them, because Dana used to love them that way. "Sorry," I murmured. And I meant it. Not just for the pancakes. For everything. Then Dana's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled, and said, "Oh, that's Rick. He wants to confirm the design meeting for tomorrow." Rick, her new business partner. She'd mentioned him a few times. Too many times, maybe. Always in glowing terms. How ambitious he was. How refreshing his energy felt. How fun it was to collaborate with someone who just got it. That morning, as she texted him back, she smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. A small, sharp instinct twisted in my gut. "Rick?" I asked. "The one you're meeting at the hotel next week?" She blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "Oh, yeah, it's just a client seminar thing." "What?" "Nothing," I said. But she must have seen the look on my face. "Don't start, Caleb. You're not going to ruin this for me too." The room fell silent. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Emily glanced up from her phone. What does that mean? I asked quietly. It means you always find a way to drag everything down. Every opportunity. Every moment. She stopped, exhaled sharply. You're exhausting. Something inside me finally cracked. I'm exhausting? My voice came out steadier than I expected. I work 50 hours a week to keep this house running. I fix things when they break. I show up when no one else does. And you call that exhausting? Dana crossed her arms. There you go again, playing the martyr. You think doing the bare minimum makes you some kind of hero? Jake muttered. Mom, just drop it. No, he needs to hear it, Dana snapped. You act like this family owes you something. Like we're all supposed to bow down because you what? Pay bills. That's your job, Caleb. That's what you signed up for. I stared at her, at all of them. Emily's blank expression. Jake's uncomfortable silence. Dana's anger sharp and bright, like a flare in the dark. And in that moment, I realized. They didn't just stop loving me. They resented me. That was the moment everything shifted. The breaking point wasn't loud or violent. It was quiet. I just stopped. Stopped trying to explain. Stopped hoping they'd understand. Later that night, while they watched a movie together, I went upstairs, opened my laptop, and moved my flight up. 3 days. 3 days until I was gone. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. Because the next day, I found something on Dana's phone that made everything clear. And this time, I didn't just stay quiet. I didn't go looking for proof. I didn't want it. That's the part people never tell you about betrayal. It's not the discovery that hurts the most. It's the confirmation of what you already feared but kept denying because admitting it would mean your whole world collapses. It happened the next morning. Dana left her phone charging in the kitchen while she took a shower. I never snooped before, not once in 23 years. But that morning, I saw the name Rick light up her screen. The preview line read, "Last night was amazing. You looked stunning. Same time next week." For a second, I couldn't move. My heartbeat drowned out everything else. My fingers hovered over the screen like they weren't mine. I didn't open the message. I didn't need to. I already knew. When she came downstairs, wrapped in her robe, humming like nothing had happened, I just watched her. The same woman who used to fall asleep on my shoulder during old movies. The same woman who once cried when I surprised her with a cheap secondhand ring because we couldn't afford better. The same woman who said she couldn't imagine life without me. Now she smiled at her phone like I wasn't even there. "Morning," she said lightly. "Morning," I replied, my voice calm, maybe too calm. She poured herself coffee. "You're quiet again. Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, taking a sip of mine. "Everything's fine." And that was the last real conversation we had. The next 72 hours passed like a fever dream. I went to work, packed what I could into a single suitcase, and scheduled an airport cab for Friday morning. I left the card on the fridge, still there, still mocking me. That night, I stood in the doorway of each kid's room. Jake was asleep, his headphones still on. Emily was scrolling on her phone, her face lit by the screen's glow. I thought about saying something, an apology, maybe, or goodbye, but the words died in my throat. They wouldn't understand. Not yet. Friday came quietly. I left before sunrise, my suitcase rolling softly over the driveway. No note. No goodbye. Just silence. By the time Dana realized I was gone, I was already on a plane to Portland. For the first few days, I felt nothing. No guilt, no freedom, just numbness. I stayed in a cheap Airbnb on the outskirts of the city, a little studio with creaky floors and a coffee maker that sputtered like it was dying. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and think, what now? The funny thing about leaving everything is that you expect it to feel cinematic, like a rebirth. But it doesn't. It feels like drifting in open water. The first week, Dana called. I didn't answer. Then came the texts, short, confused bursts. "Where are you? Caleb, this isn't funny. Can we talk?" Then came anger. "You're being selfish. Grow up. You can't just walk out on your family." I read them all. Replied to none. After that, silence again. For a while, I just existed. Grocery store runs. Long walks near the river. Random diners where nobody knew my name. I didn't even tell my company where I'd gone. I just logged in remotely, told them I needed time for personal adjustments. They didn't ask. But isolation has a strange way of forcing you to face yourself. Without the noise of my family's criticism or Dana's sarcasm, my own voice started to get louder again. The voice that used to make jokes. The one that liked old blues records and drawing plans for furniture I never built. So, one morning, I bought a cheap notebook and started writing lists, small goals at first. Go a day without checking your phone for messages from home. Cook something new. Talk to one stranger. Take a photo every day of something beautiful, even if it's small. It sounds silly, but it worked. Slowly, I started remembering who I was when nobody else was defining me. One afternoon, while walking downtown, I stumbled into this tiny woodworking shop tucked between a cafe and a bookstore. The smell hit me first: oak, varnish, and sawdust. The owner, an older guy named Tom, asked if I needed help. I told him I'd always wanted to learn, but never had the time. He grinned and said, "Then start now." And just like that, I did. He let me come by on weekends, taught me how to plane edges, join panels, read the grain. I was clumsy at first, but patient. Something about the rhythm of sanding wood, the smell of fresh shavings, it felt healing. Tangible. Honest. Weeks turned into months. I moved into a small apartment above a bakery. Every morning, I woke to the smell of fresh bread and the sound of the city waking up. My hair started to gray more, but for the first time in years, I didn't care. I looked healthier, lighter. My company eventually offered me a fully remote project position. It paid well enough, and the flexible hours gave me time to keep learning carpentry. Then one day, Tom handed me an order form from a local restaurant. "They need custom tables," he said. "I can't take it on alone. You up for it?" I hesitated, but he smiled. "You've got the touch, Caleb. Don't sell yourself short." We did it together. Built 6 oak tables, each one smooth as glass. The restaurant owner loved them. Word spread. Suddenly, we had more commissions. A coffee shop, a boutique, a woman who wanted a reading desk made from reclaimed wood. And for the first time in decades, I wasn't boring Caleb or Mr. Predictable. I was just me. One evening, I sat by the river, watching the sun dip behind the bridges. I thought about Dana, about Jake and Emily. Did they miss me? Did they even talk about me? Part of me wanted to check, search their names on social media, peek into their lives. But I didn't. That part of my life felt distant, like an old movie I used to star in but couldn't bear to rewatch. Until the email came. It was from Jake. Subject line, "Dad." I almost deleted it before opening it. But curiosity won. It was short. Just 3 lines. "Hey, Dad. Mom said you're okay. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how things went down. Emily's been, well, she's mad you left. But I get it now. Hope you're doing all right." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I wasn't ready to bridge that gap. Not yet. But that message stayed with me. It was the first crack of light through a long, dark tunnel. Over the next few months, life continued to quietly improve. I built more furniture, saved money, started running in the mornings, even made a few friends. Tom, a woman named Laura from the bakery downstairs, a group of retirees who played chess at the park. They didn't know my past. They just knew me as the quiet guy who made things with his hands. That was enough. Then, one night, out of nowhere, I got a text from Dana. "Jake dropped out of school. Please call me." I didn't, but I couldn't shake the worry. A week later, another message. "Emily's not speaking to me. She blames me for everything. Please, Caleb, just talk to them." Still, I stayed silent. Not out of cruelty, out of necessity. Because for the first time, they were living in the silence they'd forced on me for years. And silence, I'd learned, teaches. Another month passed. Then another. My business partnership with Tom grew. We officially registered a small company, Riverside Woodworks. The first time I saw the sign hanging above our shop door, I felt something stir in my chest, something I hadn't felt since before marriage. Pride. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Then, one quiet Thursday morning, as I was finishing a set of bar stools, my phone buzzed. A notification from Facebook. A new post from Jake. I didn't follow him anymore, but the first line of the preview froze me. "Dad, please come back. We were wrong." My hands went still over the wood. I opened the post. Jake had written a long message. Public. Raw. He talked about how I'd always been there, how I'd supported them quietly, how he never realized what it meant until I was gone. He said the house felt cold now, that Mom wasn't herself anymore, that everything they'd built together had started falling apart without me. The last line broke me. "I don't know if you'll ever read this, Dad, but if you do, I'm sorry. We all are." I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen through tears I didn't even know were coming. Tom noticed and asked if I was all right. I wiped my face and said, yeah, just dust in my eyes. That night, I went for a walk by the river again. The air was cool, the city quiet. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger or sadness or even vindication. Just peace. But peace has a way of stirring new questions. Because as I watched the water flow, I realized something. Rebuilding isn't just about starting over. It's about deciding what and who is worth rebuilding with. And as fate would have it, that decision was about to come crashing into my life much sooner than I expected. Because the next morning, there was a knock on my workshop door. When I opened it, standing there, with puffy eyes and trembling hands, was Emily. Emily looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her usually sharp features were drawn, her eyeliner smudged, and her eyes, those sharp, clever eyes she inherited from her mother, were red and puffy. She was wearing an old hoodie I vaguely recognized from when she was 14, sleeves too short now. The confident, sarcastic teenager who once called me a human calendar, under her breath at the dinner table. She wasn't standing here. Not today. She didn't speak at first. Just stood there in the doorway of my workshop, gripping the strap of her bag like it was an anchor. Behind her, the light rain made little ticking sounds against the canopy overhead. I blinked, still holding the corner of the oak slab I'd been sanding. My shirt was covered in fine sawdust, and I must have looked ridiculous, wide-eyed, frozen, hands stained with polish. "Hi," she said finally, voice cracking like an old radio. I didn't answer. Not immediately. She glanced behind her, then down at the puddles. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside wordlessly, heart pounding in my ears. She walked in slowly, taking it all in, the smell of wood oil and varnish, the humming overhead light, the half-finished project stacked neatly along the wall. She touched the edge of a newly made chair and nodded like she was trying to wrap her head around it. "This is cool," she mumbled. "You really made all this?" "Yeah," I said, my voice lower than usual. "I did." Emily sat down on a stool near the back bench and dropped her bag to the floor. She didn't say anything for a long time. Just sat there, fiddling with the sleeves of her hoodie. "I didn't think you'd actually be here," she whispered. "Jake said maybe you moved on. Started a new family or something." "I didn't," I said. "I'm just living." She gave a short, sad laugh. "That's more than I can say for any of us." That line hit harder than I expected. Emily rubbed her temples. "Mom doesn't talk to me anymore." "Not really. She just drinks and scrolls and pretends everything's fine. Jake barely comes home. The house is a mess. She hired a cleaner, but the woman quit after 2 weeks." She shook her head. "It's weird. Everything's broken, but no one says it out loud. It's like we're all waiting for someone to reset the scene. Like we're stuck in a bad play with no director." I said nothing. Just let her speak. She looked up at me suddenly, her eyes filled with something raw. "Why didn't you say goodbye? That one burned." I sat down across from her, hands clasped together. "Because I knew if I tried to explain, you wouldn't have listened. You all made it very clear what I meant to that house. I didn't leave because I hated you, Emily. I left because I was disappearing, and no one even noticed." She bit her lip, hard. "I noticed," she whispered. "No," I said gently. "You noticed when I was gone, not when I was fading." That shut her up. Not out of offense, out of realization. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away fast, pretending it wasn't there. "I'm sorry." I nodded. "I believe you." For a while, we just sat in silence, the rain softening outside. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Mom's still seeing Rick." I didn't react. "She says they're just working together, but I found her texts. It's gross. He calls her baby and sends heart emojis and stuff. She had me lie to Jake about it. Said he wouldn't understand." "Does Jake know now?" She nodded. "Yeah. He found out a week ago. That's why he made the post." I let that sink in. "She blamed you for him dropping out," Emily continued, her voice rising. "Said you abandoned your responsibilities and made Jake lose focus. But it's not true. It's her. She's falling apart, Dad." I didn't want to feel sorry for Dana, but hearing it from Emily made something shift. "She's mad at herself," I said quietly. "But she's taking it out on everyone else." Emily gave a bitter smile. "Classic." I looked at her. "Why did you come?" She blinked. "To see you. To say I'm sorry. And to ask you something." I waited. She hesitated, then pulled a folded piece of paper from her bag. It was a legal document. I recognized the layout instantly. My company used the same template for contracts. She's filing for divorce, Emily said. But not before she goes after your pension. She called a lawyer. Said you owe her for abandoning the family. I raised an eyebrow. She told you that. Not on purpose, she said with a bitter laugh. She was on the phone with him. I heard everything. I nodded slowly, the pieces falling into place. She said you were hiding money, that you'd manipulated her for years, that she built the house while you just coasted. My jaw clenched. I know it's not true, Emily added quickly. Jake does too. We talked. A lot, actually. We've been different lately, seeing things clearer. And why are you showing me this? She pulled something else from her bag, another envelope, unsealed. Inside was a USB drive. I took her files, emails, screenshots, messages to Rick, messages from Rick, bank transfers, everything. I even got a voice recording. My hands didn't move, but my mind was already spinning. Why? I asked. Emily looked up at me, her voice low and serious. Because she doesn't deserve to destroy you after everything she already did. I stared at her. I thought you hated me, I said. I did, she admitted. But I didn't understand what I was hating. I was parroting her. I was a kid. I saw you as a wall, not a person. But then you left, and everything collapsed. And I started seeing the cracks, the lies, the way she talks about people when they're not around, the way she spins everything. Her hands trembled slightly. I got angry at first, then scared, and then I started remembering things. How you used to sit in the car with me when I cried after soccer practice. How you stayed up to help me study. How you always brought me peppermint tea when I had a cold. You were quiet, Dad, but you were there. My throat tightened. I can't fix what we did to you, she whispered. But maybe I can stop her from making it worse. That was the moment I knew things were about to change. I took the USB, my hands steady for the first time in days. Does she know you took these? No. Good. Emily looked at me with a strange expression, part guilt, part relief. What are you going to do with it? I took a deep breath, leaning back in the stool. I'm going to take back what's mine. The next few days were a blur of motion. First, I called my lawyer, an old friend named Derek who owed me a favor from a decade ago when I helped his brother find work. He didn't ask questions when I said, I need discretion and speed. I forwarded him the files. He called back an hour later. This is gold, Caleb, he said. She's done. The fraud alone would kill her case. But the infidelity? The manipulation? The bank statements? You could turn this into a full counterclaim. I don't want to ruin her, I said. I just want her to stop trying to ruin me. He laughed. Then this is the high ground with leverage. We'll draft the reply. She tries anything in court, we bury her in receipts. For the first time since I left, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Emily stayed in town for a week, crashing in a spare room above the bakery. We talked every night, about the past, about Jake, about things I didn't know she'd been holding on to for years. Guilt. Pressure. The expectations Dana put on her to be sharp, clever, her mirror image. I didn't know who I was without her voice in my head, Emily admitted. Now you do, I said. On Thursday, Jake called. I answered. Dad. His voice cracked on the first syllable. He asked if we could meet. He wanted to talk. Apologize. He said he missed me. I told him we'd meet next week. I wasn't avoiding him. I just needed time. Space. Plans had to be laid, carefully. I'd learned something in my months away. Silence is power when used right. You wait. You build. You prepare. And then, you strike. Dana had no idea what was coming. But soon, she would. Because the next document Derek filed didn't just block her claim to my assets. It included a cease and desist for defamatory statements she'd made in writing. And the next call she'd get wouldn't be from her lawyer. It'd be from her design firm's biggest client. Because one of the emails Emily recovered, it contained a forwarded invoice, one Dana doctored to overcharge a client by 40%. All to pay for a weekend getaway with Rick. With one email, one careful whisper to the right ears, the woman who once laughed at a birthday card that said, "Thanks for ruining everything," was about to find out what it really felt like to lose everything. By the time the first domino fell, I was already 5 moves ahead. It started with a call from the founder of Linden & Company, one of the largest luxury home developers in our area, and Dana's most high-profile client. I knew of him only because Dana used to gloat about finally landing Linden like she'd hooked a whale. The man, Everett Linden, was meticulous. The kind of person who read every line of a contract, cross-referenced every expense, and didn't tolerate being misled. In the beginning, he had been Dana's golden goose. Now he was my scalpel. I sent the email anonymously. A single message. No commentary. No accusations. Just a forwarded email thread between Dana and Rick, complete with a doctored invoice and a joking line Rick had written that said, "If they're rich enough to build a pool that lights up when you clap, they're rich enough to cover our weekend." It took less than 24 hours. I never heard directly from Everett. I didn't need to. I only found out when Emily sent me a photo the next day. Dana, standing outside her office with a cardboard box in her arms, her face caught somewhere between rage and disbelief. Apparently, Linden had not only terminated their contract immediately, but word had gotten around. 3 more clients dropped her that week. Then came the legal blow. Derek filed our official counterclaim. We weren't just denying her demand for my pension. We were suing for defamation, emotional distress, and malicious interference in financial assets. It wasn't even about the money. It was the record. The permanent documentation that would follow her like a shadow every time she tried to rewrite the story. When Dana got the paperwork, she lost it. I heard about her reaction from Jake. He called, panicked, 2 hours after the courier dropped the envelope at the house. She's freaking out, Dad. Screaming, blaming Emily. She says you turned her kids against her. I didn't, I said calmly. I just left. Jake hesitated. I know. Can we meet? We did. A week later. A small park on the edge of Portland where the trees were just starting to bloom. He showed up in a hoodie and jeans, looking older than 20. A little heavier. Eyes tired. But there was something else too. A kind of humility I'd never seen in him before. He apologized. Not just once. Not just for the birthday card or the silence afterward. He apologized for every time he laughed at me when I wasn't in the room. For every time he sided with Dana to stay on her good side. For every moment he saw me as less than a person. I thought being loud made you strong, he said quietly. But you were the strongest one in the house. You just never yelled about it. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, I forgave him. Not because he earned it overnight, but because I needed to let go of what they made me carry. Jake offered to testify, if needed. Said he'd stand up for me in court. I told him that might not be necessary, because the court date never came. Dana's lawyer, after seeing our evidence, advised her to settle. Privately, quietly, she withdrew her claim on my pension. She issued a signed statement admitting to misrepresentation and false accusations. It wasn't public, but I had it. And that was enough. I didn't even push for money. The revenge wasn't about squeezing her dry. It was about showing her what happens when you push someone so far into silence that they become invisible. Because when you stop seeing someone, you forget they're watching, listening, learning. And sometimes, silence is the deadliest weapon of all. Emily moved in with me shortly after that. She wanted a fresh start. Said she didn't feel safe at home anymore. Dana, stripped of her pride and her income, had started spiraling. Drinking more. Crying at odd hours. Lashing out. She called Emily a traitor. Accused Jake of being brainwashed. But I didn't respond. Not once. She tried reaching out to me. A single email. I hope you're happy. You destroyed our family. I didn't reply. Because I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped holding the pieces together. In the months that followed, things changed. Emily started therapy. Jake got a job, moved into a small apartment, and began night classes and counseling. Said he wanted to help kids with messed up families. I kept building furniture. The shop got busier. Tom and I expanded into custom kitchens. I hired 2 apprentices. My face started appearing in local ads, handcrafted by Caleb. People stopped calling me boring. One afternoon, months later, I got a message request on Facebook. From Rick. All it said was, "You're a scary guy, Caleb. Respect." I deleted it. I wasn't scary. I wasn't vindictive. I was patient. I was deliberate. I was finished. The last time I saw Dana was by accident, at the grocery store. She looked thinner, older. Her cart was half full, her face drawn. When she saw me, she froze. Tried to speak. I nodded politely. Walked past her. That was it. She wasn't the villain in every chapter. Just the wrong person in mine. As for me, I'm not Mr. Predictable anymore. I'm just Caleb. Builder. Father. Free man. And on my next birthday, Emily baked the cake. Jake brought the candles. No cards with insults. No fake laughs. Just a quiet dinner. With people who saw me. Who knew what I'd survived. And as we cleared the plates, Emily said something that stayed with me. Thanks for not giving up on yourself. I smiled, looked around the room, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Real, solid, earned peace. Because the truth is, I never needed revenge. I just needed them to feel what it's like when I finally stopped smiling and walked away. Forever.